Hello and welcome. Namaste from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up in the next 30 minutes. Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal makes statements in both houses of Parliament saying the government will safeguard national interests in the face of US President Donald Trump's 25% tariff announcement. Tariff boost for the US. Reports say it has taken in $87 billion in the first half of 2025 with raised levies, more than the $79 billion it raked in during all of 2024. And Russia breaks ice with Syria's new leadership. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov meets his Syrian counterpart in Moscow. First up, India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal made a statement on US tariffs in Indian Parliament saying India will take steps to protect its national interest. The minister mentioned that the government is consulting exporters, industries and other stakeholders to understand their concerns. He also emphasized on the welfare of farmers, workers, entrepreneurs, MSMEs and industrial stakeholders.
Of Commerce and Industry is engaged with all stakeholders, including exporters and industry, for taking feedback of their assessment of the situation. The government attaches the utmost importance to protecting and promoting the welfare of our farmers, workers, entrepreneurs, exporters, MSMEs, and all sections of industry. We will take all necessary steps to secure and advance our national interest.
Now, as the minister delivered the statements in both houses of Parliament, the government on Wednesday also issued a measured response to US President Trump's tariff announcement. The government said it has taken note of the US President's statement and is studying its implementations. According to a statement by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, India and the US have been engaged in negotiations on concluding a fair, balanced and mutually beneficial bilateral trade agreement over the last few months. They remain committed to that objective. The Indian government attaches the utmost importance to protecting and promoting the welfare of the country's farmers, entrepreneurs and MSMEs, and it will take all steps necessary to secure India's national interests, as has been the case with other trade agreements, including the latest comprehensive economic and trade agreement with the UK. And of course, all this followed US President Donald Trump announcing the imposition of 25% tariff on imports from India starting the 1st of August. Trump also said that the US is still negotiating with India on trade. At the same time, the clock has been ticking closer to US President Trump's latest tariff deadline, which is the 1st of August. And while several more deals have been reached since his last tariff deadline of the 9th of July came and went, trade talks with many countries are still in flux. In April, Trump unveiled sweeping import taxes on goods coming into the US from nearly every country. That included heightened reciprocal rates for certain countries. The first 90-day pause arrived in an apparent effort to quell global market panic and facilitate country-by-country negotiations. But 3 months later, only 2 deals emerged, with the UK as well as Vietnam. A separate framework for a deal was hashed out with China. And by early July, Trump began sending warning letters that higher tariffs would be imposed against dozens of countries on the 1st of August, when he had last-minute deals being struck very close to the deadline with the EU as well as some other countries. And just one case in point, the US has announced trade deal with South Korea that will subject South Korean imports to a 15% tariff as part of an agreement with the Asian trading partner. As a matter of fact, South Korea has been facing a 25% levy if it had not struck a deal. As part of the agreement, South Korea will also invest $350 billion in the US and purchase $100 billion of liquefied natural gas and any other energy products. The announcement comes just a day before a 1st of August deadline for countries to reach agreements with the US or be hit with higher tariffs. South Korea's presidential office has said that the country's trade agreement with the US has pushed down tariffs on Korean automobiles to 15%. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung said the deal would put his country on an equal or better footing compared to other countries. And South Korean shares ended lower despite the deal on Thursday, with the Kospi dropping 0.28% to 3,245.44, erasing early gains. US tariffs of 15% on South Korean imports announced by Donald Trump slammed automakers, with Hyundai Motor and Kia Core falling 4.5% and 7.3% respectively, losing their 2.5% tariff edge over Japanese rivals. Samsung Electronics dipped 1.65%, while SK Hynix rose 3.8%. Shipbuilders rallied, but the new trade deal with the US weighed heavily on market sentiment. Japanese government spokesperson Yoshimasa Hayashi said on Thursday that his country will closely monitor trade talk developments between South Korea and the United States after Donald Trump said the US will impose a 15% tariff on imports from South Korea.
We will continue to closely monitor related developments, including recent agreement between South Korea and United States, and will continue to thoroughly analyze the impact on Japan based on related developments, including agreement between Japan, the United States, and South Korea.
Also, US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said during an interview that the United States has made trade deals with Cambodia and Thailand ahead of President Donald Trump's 1st of August tariff deadline.
Donald Trump solved a war between Thailand and Cambodia all weekend long.
By the way, he solved the conflict worldwide one a month since he's been president. That's
it's
a pretty good track record.
unbelievable. And because he uses trade, he gets to invite me on the phone, and I listen all day Saturday while he's calling Cambodia, Thailand, Cambodia, Thailand. And what happens on Monday? They announce a truce. And you know what we did today? We made trade deals with Cambodia and Thailand.
Meanwhile, Thailand expects more details on its tariff rate from the US within the next 24 hours. Thailand's finance minister, Pichai Chunhawajira, said the country was still working a little bit more on trade details with the US in a post on his X account on Thursday after the US Commerce Secretary said a deal had been done. And Trump has signed an executive order implementing an additional 40% tariff on Brazil, bringing the total tariff amount to 50%. The order said the tariffs would go into effect 7 days after the signing on Wednesday. The order would apply an additional 40% tariff on the baseline 10% tariff already being levied by Trump. But not all goods imported from Brazil would face the 40% tariff. Civil aircraft and parts, aluminum, tin, wood pulp, energy products and fertilizers are among the products being excluded. And Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has hit back at the move, saying that he would defend the sovereignty of the Brazilian people in the face of measures announced by the President of the United States. End quote. Meanwhile, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said on Wednesday that tariff negotiations with US President Donald Trump's administration have been constructive, but the talks may not be concluded by the 1st of August deadline.
Complex, they're comprehensive, they're constructive negotiations with the Americans are ongoing. It's possible that they may not conclude by the 1st of August, but we'll see. With the teams there, we're working hard. Conversations today, myself.
Now, the Union Cabinet has also approved the Central Sector Scheme, granting aid to National Cooperative Development Corporation with an outlay of 2,000 crore Indian rupees for a period of 4 years from 2025-26 to 2028-29. These funds will be utilized by the NCDC for granting loans to cooperatives for setting up new projects or expansion of plants and loan for meeting working capital requirements.
फैसला लिया गया, इस फैसले का महत्व आप समझिए। एनसीडीसी कोऑपरेटिव सोसाइटीज को लोन देती है। आज उसका कैपिटल 2000 करोड़ रुपए से बढ़ाया गया ग्रांट इन एड के माध्यम से। एनसीडीसी जो लोन देती है उस लोन में करीब करीब 99.8% रिकवरी है। नेट एनपीए जीरो है, नेट एनपीए जीरो है। बहुत बड़ी बात है ये। इस तरह का जो फाइनेंशियल सपोर्ट सिस्टम बना है, उस फाइनेंशियल सपोर्ट सिस्टम जो कि एक अच्छा मॉडल बना है देश में, इसको और आगे बढ़ाने के लिए 2000 करोड़ रुपए 4 साल में एवरी ईयर 500 करोड़ रुपीस, ये इस आज के कैबिनेट के अप्रूवल का क्रक्स है।
And the Union Cabinet, also chaired by Prime Minister Modi, approved a total outlay of 6,520 crore Indian rupees, including additional outlay of 1,920 crore Indian rupees for ongoing central sector scheme Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana during the 15th Finance Commission cycle. This will fund the setting up of 50 multi-product food irradiation units and 100 NABL accredited food testing laboratories.
कैबिनेट के फैसले में प्रधानमंत्री कृषि संपदा योजना का आउटले बढ़ा के 6,520 करोड़ किया गया, 6,520 करोड़ किया गया, और नए इरेडिएशन यूनिट्स और फूड टेस्टिंग लैब्स 50 इरेडिएशन यूनिट्स एंड 100 फूड टेस्टिंग लैब्स के लिए 1,000 करोड़ रुपीस का अलग से प्रावधान किया गया।
India today is celebrating 30 years of mobile telephony with a grand event in New Delhi, jointly organized by the Confederation of All India Traders. The event marks the anniversary of India's first mobile call on the 31st of July 1995. During the event, Union Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia said India is now a global telecom leader, with UPI reaching the Eiffel Tower and $17 billion invested to connect 6.5 lakh, that is 650,000 villages, with broadband, taking the digital revolution to every corner of the nation.
हमारा देसी यूपीआई सिस्टम फ्रांस के आईफल टावर पे लग चुका है मेरे भाई और बहनों, और भारत ने द्वितीय योजना के आधार पर $17 बिलियन, 1,40,000 करोड़ रुपए की योजना किसी अमेरिका और यूरोप ने नहीं सोचा। वो प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी हमारे 6.5 लाख गांवों को ओएफसी ब्रॉडबैंड के साथ जोड़ने जा रहे हैं मेरे भाई।
Now let's take a look at some other stories making news around the world. In France, residents of Montmartre are worried as the tourist numbers has been growing at a rapid pace post 2024 Paris Olympics. Now a quiet artistic retreat, the district has watched its cobblestone streets and idyllic views grow crowded, worrying some residents about the future. Real estate prices in Montmartre have also seen a significant spike since last year. Crowds gathered around a beach in central Japan's Chiba prefecture after 4 whale carcasses were discovered washed up on its shore. Several local students appear to be collecting samples from the carcasses. The Chiba government is currently investigating the matter and plans to dispose of the carcasses through burial or other means. In Australia, a new species of stick insect weighing around the same as a golf ball has been discovered in the canopies of a remote rainforest. Scientists believe the winged insect, Acrophila alta, weighs 44 grams and measures around 40 centimeters in length. 2 specimens have been added to the Queensland Museum's collection to aid future research. And still to come on this edition of DD India Live. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff meets Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem in a bid to salvage Gaza ceasefire talks. And Myanmar's junta ends the 4-year-long emergency, paving the way for elections in December, which opposition groups have pledged to boycott.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff met Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem on Thursday in a bid to salvage Gaza truce talks and tackle a humanitarian crisis in the enclave, where a global hunger monitor has warned that famine is unfolding. Indirect ceasefire talks between Israel and the Hamas in Doha ended in deadlock last week, with the sides trading blame for the impasse and gaps lingering over issues including the extent of an Israeli military withdrawal. Witkoff arrived with Israel facing mounting international pressure over the widespread destruction of Gaza and constraints on aid in the territory, with Canada the latest Western power to say it will recognize a Palestinian state. Meanwhile, the UN's Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said on Wednesday that the United Nations and its partners had been able to bring more food into Gaza in the first 2 days of pauses, but the volume was still far from enough. Myanmar's junta ended its state of emergency on Thursday, ramping up plans for the December election that opposition groups pledged to boycott and monitor said will be used to syndicate the military's power. The military declared a state of emergency in February 2021 as it deposed the civilian government of Democratic leader Aung San Suu Kyi, sparking a many-sided civil war which has claimed thousands of lives. The order gave junta chief Min Aung Hlaing supreme power over the legislature, executive and judiciary, but he has recently touted elections as an off-ramp to the conflict. Opposition groups, including ex-lawmakers ousted in the coup, have pledged to snub the poll, which a UN expert last month dismissed as a fraud designed to legitimize the military's continued rule. The United States raked in over $87 billion in tariff revenue in the first half of 2025, according to U.S. Treasury data. Over $87 billion USD in tariff revenue taken in through the end of June, surpassing the $79 billion USD collected throughout all of 2004. Now, in a dramatic policy shift, Canada intends to recognize a Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly in September. Prime Minister Mark Carney has stressed that the move is necessary to preserve hopes of a two-state solution to the Israel-Palestinian conflict. He said it has been a long-standing Canadian goal that was being eroded. It makes Canada the third country following recent announcements by France and United Kingdom that they could recognize the Palestinian state in September.
For a two-state solution have been steadily and gravely eroded, including by the pervasive threat of Hamas terrorism to Israel and its people, culminating in the heinous attack of October 7, 2023, the terrorist organization Hamas's long-standing violent rejection of Israel's right to exist and its rejection of a two-state solution. A belief in a two-state solution, the inalienable rights of both peoples, and the fact that peace and security could only be achieved through it. That prospect, that possibility of a two-state solution is being eroded before our eyes.
Now, Israel blasted Canada's announcement as part of a distorted campaign of international pressure. In a statement, Israel's foreign ministry said this announcement represented a reward to terrorist faction Hamas and harms the efforts to achieve a ceasefire in Gaza and a framework for the release of the hostages. Ukraine's parliament on Thursday voted to restore the independence of two key anti-corruption agencies. Lawmakers voted 331 to 0 in favor of the bill, which President Volodymyr Zelensky submitted last week following pressure from thousands of protesters and top European officials. The measure now goes to Zelensky for a signature. Before voting began, people gathered outside Parliament in an attempt to pressure lawmakers to approve the new bill. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Thursday said that the world should push for regime change in Russia, arguing that Vladimir Putin otherwise would continue to destabilize Russia's neighbors. Speaking virtually to a conference marking 50 years since the signing of the Cold War era Helsinki Accords, Zelensky said he believed Russia could be pushed to stop the war. And Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has met Syrian counterpart Assad al-Shabani in Moscow on Thursday. They agreed to regularly inspect bilateral agreements covering security, personnel training, both civilian and military, reflecting Syria's interests. Lavrov hoped President Ahmad al-Shara, who ousted Russian ally Bashar al-Assad in December, would attend a Russia-Arab summit in October. Al-Shabani emphasized Damascus' desire for Moscow's support to unify Syria. The talks signaled a pragmatic shift as Russia adapts to Syria's new leadership with maintaining influence. Russia's Penza region governor Oleg Malichenko said on Thursday that Ukrainian drones had struck a local industrial facility. According to the governor, the drones' attack did not cause any fatalities, though Russia's state railway company said that drone debris had hit railway infrastructure and temporarily halted trains in the southern Volgograd region. Russia's defense ministry said that it had downed 32 Ukrainian drones over several Russian regions. And Ukrainian emergency services said on Thursday that a wave of Russian missile and drone attacks on Kyiv killed at least 8 people and destroyed buildings. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russia launched more than 300 drones at night. Russia said on Thursday it had captured the town of Chasiv in eastern Ukraine. Russia's defense ministry said in a brief statement its forces had liberated the town. And now some sports news where early lunch had to be taken on day one of the 5th India vs England test at the Kensington Oval in London due to rain. It was a testing phase for India, but they played well through it. The overcast conditions saw England pacers wreaking havoc with an exhibition of swing bowling. Gus Atkinson dismissed Yashasvi Jaiswal on the first ball of the 4th over, while Chris Wokes got better of KL Rahul on the first ball of the 16th over. The duo of Shubman Gill and Sai Sudarshan have helped India make a mini recovery post that debacle. India was 72 for 2 at lunch. There have been rain interruptions as well. Now they're 83 for 3. So we have lost another wicket in the form of, we've lost Gill. England's stand-in captain Ollie Pope took a brilliant review in the case of Jaiswal when he got out of 2. And that's all we have for this edition of DD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS. Just scan the QR code and download the app right away. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.